I was working on a really different book, inspired by my parents' experiences of surviving the Holocaust. And one day, on the way to my desk, I felt, saw, sensed a young girl crying in her bed, kind of curled up in a fetal position. And I knew she was me. And I knew there was something I needed to listen to.
Hello and welcome back to Explore with Lori Ference. Before we begin, I want to say a quick word about this episode. This interview was recorded 2 years ago, and at the time I spent nearly 3 months editing a documentary-style video version of the conversation. Eventually, I realized that producing that kind of long-form video as a team of one simply wasn't sustainable for me, and the project ended up sitting on a hard drive while the podcast went dormant. Recently, I revisited the recording and realized that the conversation itself still feels meaningful and worth sharing. One of the reasons is that the themes we explore here are deeply connected to the core of my work, particularly ancestral healing and the ways family stories, trauma, and memory continue to live within us across generations. In this episode, I'm speaking with author Ani Tuzman about her memoir, Angels on the Clothesline. Ani is an award-winning poet, writing mentor, and author. She grew up on a back road chicken farm in New England, the daughter of Holocaust survivors. At the age of 8, she began writing to an invisible companion, filling page after page with her questions about a world darkened by the shadow of the Holocaust. But there was also the ecstasy of rain, the dance of the willow, the gleaming stars. Writing about it all in the silent, unconditional embrace of nature became Ani's path to light. Ani relishes meditation, the changing seasons, her changing grandchildren, and inspiring others to find and free their voices. For me, conversations like this are powerful reminders that the stories we inherit can carry both wounds and wisdom, and that bringing those stories into the light can be a part of a deep healing process. If you feel drawn to this kind of exploration, you can learn more about my work and the spaces I hold for this kind of healing on my website at explorewithloriference.com. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. All right, so yeah, let's just get into this book. I when I wrote my review for it, I really meant every word that I said. And I feel like it's destined to be, and we talked about this, right? That you're not attached to that you do believe in the book, but I feel like it's like a great American classic. That's what I feel like. I feel like it's a book that should be required reading in schools.
Seeing it in schools is one of my longings for the book, really is, for all sorts of reasons. Yeah. So hearing you say that is so close to my heart, so close to my heart. And for those who I write at the end, I forget the exact words, those who tend and love children or something, parents, educators, and others, also for people who are with children, whose responsibility is and to care for our young generations, that too. And not only the vulnerability and the suffering of some, also the resilience, the wonder, all of that, to embrace the whole child, because I do think it's not that common to enter the consciousness of a child that
Yeah.
way. It doesn't happen because children themselves aren't doing that. And as adults, this, even though an adult wrote this book, it's still, I could feel it. I was entering that consciousness. And that's, I think, so much the gift of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And in various dimensions, in what it is to suffer trauma, intergenerational trauma, being made other, but also swinging and looking in your dog's eyes and
Yeah.
mystery of the universe and all of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So to hear you say that is really moving.
Well, I feel it deeply. So much of what you're talking about, I could speak to because I feel like what you want it to be for children, it's so personified in the writing itself because you have that the depths of the grief and the darkness and then the brilliance of the light
Oh,
all intermingled in lifting and elevating. So it's almost as if they would just be relating to you as your child's self and your experience, and then letting them know they're not alone.
absolutely. And this theme of being seen, one of the names in the running for the book was I See You. And I always kind of knew it was Angels in the Clothesline, but for a little while, some editors were like, you can't name it that. But anyway, but I See You is definitely a theme in the book. And so when you say children or young people, because I don't know about children, young children reading
Mhm.
it, certain ones maybe, but it's more a little bit older.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the consciousness of their teachers with young children, yes, but the feeling not alone and feeling seen, even all sorts of things, like even in their interest in something. We often, maybe not everybody, but a lot of us know early that there's things that attract us, that we connect with, we feel passionate about. And often that's not nurtured, it's not seen by others. Circumstances don't allow children or young people to. So even that dimension, even in this case, it was a young girl that writing saves her. And also she loves it from the beginning, out of the gate. And I think a lot of kids have things they love. So it's not only kids that say love writing, but whatever it is that draws them, and being, and also just being seen, like you said, being seen in their, if especially if they're being made other in any way, or even just feel other inside of a family, or there's trauma, or there's walking on eggshells, or there's all sorts of family situations. Oh God, that's what I wrote in my journal recently, that if this book could help, I might start to cry, but if this book could help young people feel less alone, like, I could die happy. I didn't have this agenda when I wrote the book, but as I hold it and look at it and know what my experience was, and imagine that young people could feel joy, like I did with Ruby, right? Um, and with my unseen
Yeah.
companion. And that made that too. Some children will have that, some won't, but oh my God, or the trees, or all the ways that um, they could feel joined. Oh my God.
You access these very, very vivid childhood memories, and they had such richness and awareness in them. And I'm just wondering, how did this happen? What was the process of writing this book?
Well, one thing, how it began in the book, it says that I was working on a really different book inspired by my parents' experiences of surviving the Holocaust. And one day on the way to my desk, I felt, saw, sensed a young girl crying. in her bed, kind of curled up in a fetal position. And I knew she was me. And I knew there was something I needed to listen to. And so I sat down, and instead of continuing to work on the novel about my parents, inspired by my parents, I wrote, "I see you in your bed." And it just, and as I was seeing her, I entered into being her. And every day, that was during the pandemic, I brought my differently abled home son to live with me again to protect him. He needed extra care. And every day while he was in his virtual classes, every day it started with, "I see you." And I would be in another moment or scene or experience. And I was there. I was just there. The entry point was, "I see you." But then, as you know, in the vignettes, it's in the voice and the consciousness of the child. And, details, you know, the details, the texture of things, the sounds of things, everything was there. And I just sort of reported it or wrote it as I experienced it. There's no analysis like the adult would analyze. There isn't, it's very in the moment of the experience. So even in one scene where something very difficult's happening between the child and her teacher, there's no, "Oh, this shouldn't be happening." There's just, "I want to be invisible. How do I do that?" It's very, very immediate. And that kind of detail, and for those who know what highly sensitive is, and that's not a better than or a worse than, it's just a thing. It's it's a thing. 10%, I think it is, of the animal species and human species. It's kind of the way the woman who kind of brought it forth, Elaine Aron, talks about it, is in a tribe of zebras and there's a predator coming, there'll be a few that raise their heads before the others. And they've done a whole bunch of research on this, and it's not fight flight, it's not exactly that. It's just they tune in at a certain level. And what's said about highly sensitive children or people is that their experiences are taken in at very, very, very deep levels. And if there's trauma, even deeper. And so the memory is also can be heightened. Now, in some cases, I'm sure we repress things and all that, but I think that's part of it, honestly. I think part of it is that I'm what they call an HSP, a highly sensitive person. It's just a quality of being. And I do believe that's part of it. One of the groups of people that I can imagine the book speaking to are highly sensitive people and teachers and people that are not. And therefore, certain things might not make sense exactly about their students. And so perhaps it can help with that. But so I think that's part of it, honestly. I think I registered things really, really deeply. And so it's sort of tapping into that, maybe like they say in the opening, that circuitry in the brain heart circuitry.
So these memories, would they come during your waking life as well, or just when you sat down to write? Was it a process of opening up to yourself and sort of just then visiting that world, or was it spontaneous, just coming to you at other times?
Yeah, no, I can remember. It's just that the sitting down and writing focuses it. I've written a lot of poetry, so when I write, I don't talk like that all in a conversation. All the way, poets capture the light, or the way. So it's not that I had to go into some kind of trance, or but that said, creating the time and the space and the quiet and the intention And then I'd wait and see. I didn't write it in the order. I put it kind of in the order of age, so it'd be less confusing to the reader and make more sense developmentally. I didn't write it in the order the book is in. I just would wait for what I didn't know was a book. I just knew I had to do it. So I would sit down and wait. I see you. And then I would just, they all began, I see you initially. They do not now, just to vary it. And it made sense. But they all, like, I see you on your swing. I see you under the willow with Lucky, your dog. I see you. And then I just was present. I just kind of waited and saw. And the seeing was feeling and knowing. And so so yes, in a way, it was consecrated, focused time. But it's not that I couldn't remember that when I wasn't in that place.
Okay. Oh, well, you mentioned the dog, and the dog, I had a Lucky, believe it or not. It wasn't my dog, but it was my great aunt's dog. And she lived out on a farm. And I loved this dog. He was a very fluffy German Shepherd, very sweet.
Also a German Shepherd.
Yeah, very fluffy, very sweet. And he was part of a trio, and the other two were sweet as well. But Lucky was younger and had more energy and was just kind of a pal, right? So I just, when you know how much I love dogs and how important dogs are to me in my life, they serve my heart in such a deep way and the expression of love in my life. So, of course, when you're writing about Lucky, it teaches many parts of this book touched me very deeply in the heart level, but that part is just coming to mind because you mentioned it, and it definitely did. Uh, and then when you wrote that vignette about how you went into mourning and wearing black, and we just which one was that? I just
That
read
was,
about that.
let's see, that I think is it called Morning? Hold on, because they had different names along the way.
Yeah, yeah,
Morning, page
morning.
198,
Okay,
Morning. Yeah.
okay.
On many levels, that was one of the harder days in my life. Because not only the loss of one of my best friends in the universe, but then not being allowed to mourn, to feel grief because of all those that had died without graves and all of that. And to actually be, to be hit, to be kind of the feelings sort of tried to be smacked out of me, kind of, who were you to feel so sad? That was really, really hard. And that who are you to feel sad there's been a lot of inner work around that to be able to have all the feelings in a way, because it wasn't just Lucky, but all the suffering of my parents. Who was I to feel happy and who was I to feel sad? So it's taken years. It's not even entirely done, in the sense that there's suffering in the world right now, and I still can feel challenged around feeling happy when I know there's suffering. And at least I know that's going on, and I know that my being happy doesn't add to the suffering of another, but it's still inner work to untangle that, for lack of a better word. But it's happened for sure over time. But I didn't even really understand I thought that was kind of right in a way. Like, who was I to, while we know some part of us is like, I hate you for that, to, inside, it's like, we know something's off about it, but we also take it in, and then we do it to ourselves long after our parents are gone. And so that became a kind of truth, like, who was I to feel too happy or too sad,
Mhm.
given the immensity, and I'm always aware of the suffering. I don't mean to say I care, but I am aware that there is suffering in our world. And that's okay. That's okay. What doesn't help the suffering or me is to respond to it in a certain way that, like, I can't be happy or I can't take a walk and feel joy under the sky because there's no bombs above my head. So therefore I can't enjoy the sky. No, I can enjoy the sky and I can send love to the skies above Gaza or to the people. It's not either or. And that's like, nor could I help my parents. I couldn't save them. I couldn't really reduce their suffering. No amount of being good enough could be good enough, really. And I don't resent them. It's been years of work around all that, but they did the best they could with what they had to deal with. And thank God I've been able to grow in love, I guess is one way to say it.
I'm led to diary because of many of the things that you just said. Who gave you the diaries?
I didn't make that explicit connection in the book. I write about the Elmer 5 and 10 that I loved, creaky floors, like the old Woolworths, I guess, used to be that, for those who can remember, and the bell on the door, the creaky floors, oh, the smell. So I would save up money. So I found, the little patent leather diary and the little vinyl box called Treasures, and so I locked the diary, locked it in the box called Treasure. So I got those at the Elmer 5 and 10.
I thought that would be really an act of compassion and support from your parents if they were the ones that had been buying you the diaries.
Well, they didn't oppose it and they might have supported. I don't remember them gifting me the diary.
Okay.
I maybe later along the way, maybe, but I don't really remember. I remember certainly with the patent leather and the treasure box. The first one was a pink one. I'm pretty sure I got that for myself. There's a chance, but I wasn't doing a whole lot of writing before I got it. So they knew I liked books and reading and writing to some degree, but they were so in their, God bless them, in their own world that I don't know until later when, my mother says to someone she loves writing. When I was so young and loving it, I don't know that they were even tuning in. I mean, they knew you go to school and you learn, and they were happy I was learning, as they called it, English, so I could be an American like everybody else. They were happy about that. As we know, they asked me to speak for them, and which a lot of immigrants kids go through. And I imagine a lot of them, like me, don't like being the parents in those situations, and then at home being put in our place because, it's complicated, because out there in the world, we speak for them. And then at home, just remember who you really are. But in any case, I don't know that they really got it, how much I loved writing. And I was secretive, certainly, about my writing, because it's where I felt safe to talk about, to some degree, what was going on. Certainly not with them.
Yeah, which also brings me to your relationship with your mother in particular. And that vignette, there was, despite a lot of the, I don't know how to characterize it, heavy energy
That's a
that you
good.
had to, yeah, that you had to learn how to respond to, that in that vignette, she honored the fact that you had this place to keep it secret, your words.
That was really, there were moments like that. There's some other places in the book too where that happens. They were not the most common, for sure. They were exceptions, but they were there. And I knew that. So in that case where she stood up and, said nobody in this house should have to lock their diary, it was like, who said that? Really? what really I remembered is sort of, oh, did she have one before it all blew up? Did she have a diary in that house she had to flee and never saw again? Did she maybe? Like there was a moment of, because usually the emphasis was always on when they talked about Europe and their lives, they often wouldn't say Poland, they would say Europe.
Mm.
There was nothing before. I mean, there were a couple of sometimes where she would do that, like on the Sabbath or something, but it was all wrecked, it was all gone, it was all destroyed. So moments for me when I imagined her young were like these parting of the clouds. But I think for her, mostly it was too painful to talk about that. The trauma was still pretty new. And so there was some of that talking about that, but mostly it was too tender, I think. So I would have glimpses, like when she, with the diary or with the puddle. And just about third person for a second, it's interesting. I had more insight. I find myself in book clubs or events often saying the child or she, and I know it's me. It's not like disassociation or something. I know it's me, but there's something. She's also, well, it's two things. One, I feel like it's my story, but not only my story. And that's part of what that's about. Even in the writing, there's identifying with it, and there's this feeling of it's not only my story. So in a way, she's a character that this happened to. The other day, after seeing a movie, the star of the movie was being interviewed, and the interviewer was talking to him as if he was the character in it. It was American fiction, as if he was the writer. And Jeffrey Wright answers, well, the character I played, the character, just because that was natural to him, not to say I. And I thought about that. And yes, I know she's me. And also, she's a character in this book. And some of it, I think, has to do with there was more healing in writing that book than I think I even grasped while writing it. And I grasped a lot of that while writing it and right after. I think I'm getting even more how healing it was. There's some way that I'm less identified with the trauma. I know it happened to me. I can still have triggers, and I'm not identified with being the victim. And it's not that I have been, it's hard to put into words. I just know something's shifting even more, and that writing the book had to do with it.
Yeah, it was obvious to me when you said what you said about the way that it came into being. I see you. It feels like a healing process.
Yes. And I knew that. Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I knew that. And
Mhm.
I knew that. And one of the moving things we've talked about, like the book being with children and in schools or young people. And I've gotten actually more feedback on this because it isn't yet in schools, is people in my generation or maybe even a little bit younger who are about, and many of us who have had various degrees maybe of trauma or parents of our generation, and talking to me about, some have told me they've started writing I see you to themselves,
Right.
you know, themselves.
Yeah.
And that also moves me, and it's hugely healing,
Mhm.
as well as, because yes, it was ICU me, but it was also seeing my parents. And even though I've done so much therapy and so much inner work, and really, I don't carry this, even I wish it had happened differently. I haven't carried that for a while. At the same time, there's been even more of seeing them. And they weren't the easiest parents to have, for sure. And at the same time, seeing the mother in her fullness as a rageaholic, God bless her, and a traumatized person before they had the word PTSD and understood, and as a wounded person, and as somebody that, to the best of her ability, loved her children and her husband and did the best she could.
I want to talk about that healing process because in the work that I do, I very much identify with what you're talking about. It is time travel. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And
I
you
didn't
are,
say that. Yeah.
it's what it
Yeah.
is. It's really what it is. And you are, and third person as well, because you are accessing yourself. She's not the you now, but she is part of you. And you are traveling through time to her and hearing her, having her express what she's feeling, what she's experiencing. And in that ability to express and to be heard is where the healing is happening. And then you are returning her to you in a healed state.
I think that's a brilliant way to talk about it. Plus, I didn't say the words time traveler. I didn't think of that like I'm going to time travel now. But years ago, when I wrote my first book, the novel about the Baal Shem Tov, who was a healer in the 1700s, somebody who was a channel said to me, you know, you're a time traveler. Because I was realizing that some of the things I saw, most of the book I wrote recording, walking in the woods, seeing things, and I wrote them down. And some of them I knew from research, but some of them I didn't, because there's not a lot written about him really and known about him, and he didn't write anything. So later, this woman said to me, you know, you time travel. You were back there. You saw and were back there. And not right away, but at some point along the way with angels, I thought, oh, maybe it's not only the highly sensitive and the remembering, maybe there's something to that about the time traveling. So I love the way you just said it, bring her back to
Mm-hmm.
you healed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, that's such a beautiful reflection about the process.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I see. So,
And I love that you help others to do
yeah,
that.
I'm able to help others to do that because I've done it for myself. That the most profound healing I've experienced has been healing that I've done that's my work for myself. When I say this to you, it's because when you talk about this process, I feel it.
Yeah.
I feel the you, right? And the healing and the power of the connection in that expression.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And even thankfully, I think even if, I mean, for some people that might be like, I can't do that, or that's too whatever. But, you know, I also lead writing groups for people. And I do see the amazing power in just being willing to do I see you. One woman, I just was using I see you as a spark, open-ended. And she had lost a beloved very quickly to cancer. It went very fast. And one day she wrote, I see you. And these letters from him started to come through to her. I see you, Catherine, I see. And yes, on one level, it was part of her. It was amazing, the interdimensionality, in a sense, the time travel, that the things that we have so separate are not so separate. And there's no belief required. There's
No, no,
just
because it's experience. You're experiencing it.
the power of just sitting down with curiosity, with openness, and writing I see you. Even I led a workshop before the book. This spark I see you was intriguing to me. And somebody invited me to lead an online group for parents of teenagers. I just led them in 3 experiences of I see you. One of them was I see you turn to themselves as teenagers with just a moment. It could have been a difficult moment. It could have been an ecstatic moment, a stoned moment, whatever it was. I see you, and just tune in. And another was to see their child. That was the third one. I think the one in the middle was to see the two of them engaged in maybe a difficult situation, or maybe not. I can't remember the details, but the power of, in that case, it was like the power of just, I see you, just pausing, not talking to the teenager, for example, their teenager, not their teenage self, but their own just pausing to see. What do you see? What do you see when you're not just, so even without any, I'm going to change anything, the power of presence, the power of pausing. And I love the simpleness of the words, I see you, even those simple words, but it is presence, and it's compassionate presence, it's open presence.
Each one of the vignettes,
Mhm.
did you intentionally, because it almost feels like in the final lines of the vignette, it's like you take everything that came before and just sort of crystallize it into an image and some words. Was that intentional, or was that just part of how it unfolded?
Well, both. I mean, uh, I've been a poet for years, and you kind of, you know, there's some, it's not like well, of course there's cognition in it, but it's hard to explain. There's intuition. I would be surprised and delighted, because what would happen is it would just crystallize, is a great word. It would, and sometimes, honestly, like when I narrate the audiobook, and when I was in the studio and I would come to the end of the vignette, I would be kind of in awe of where it ended, where it came to. So it's a combination of craft, intuition, listening, you know, certainly there was craft in there too, but it also came. So it did, a lot of it was because I really, rereading them, like when I narrated the audiobook, I I I cried at times. The engineer cried at times. We had to pause. He was reminded of some of his own experiences in childhood. Some of the pieces nailed something for him, and we had to both stop and take breaths. But also there'd be moments where I'd be like, who wrote that? Like, a lot of that. And I knew, I mean, it wasn't that I didn't even remember. I did remember, but it came from I guess another way to say that is it came from a really deep place.
There are these really, really beautiful passages, and then there are the ones that are very sad, very intense, that really open my eyes up to the suffering that you experienced, that I had no idea that descendants of those that had experienced the Holocaust experienced to the degree that you did, in terms of the discrimination, just the brutality, pure, this is darkness.
Hmm.
And I see how much our school systems have changed over time, that a lot of what you experienced in school would never be tolerated now, and the teachers and the things that they did, and just thinking about how your father advocated for you, went to the school, and how you were afraid that what would happen to him because of that. And I feel like I'm going to ask you to read if anything comes to mind.
One does come to mind
Okay.
that's short enough to
Okay.
capture some of that, but not, pages and pages long. So,
Okay.
that's Spitballs. Russell throws spitballs in third grade when Mrs. Cadave's back is turned. Russell is fearless. Impossible to control, Mrs. Cadave says. Not like you. Before being sent to sit in the hallway, then to the principal's office, where he always winds up, Russell has to drag his chair to the front of the class, so Mrs. Cadave can keep her eye on him while she writes on the blackboard. Russell winks at you from up there. when he thinks she isn't looking. And even if she is, you are the outcasts, him so daringly bad, you quiet as dust, praying to be invisible because it's so dangerous to be seen by Mrs. Kadev. Maybe if you get quiet enough, she will forget about you. If only you could be quiet enough, but you can't be. Well, they won't be. Books dropping, pencils snapping in half, desktops slamming, lunchboxes rattling. It always works when they do those things. Mrs. Kadave at the blackboard whips around, points. Little Jew, she accuses, commanding you to write 100 or 300 or 500 times, depending how loud and startling the noise, the sentence that always starts, I will not disturb the class by, and ends with the crime, shutting my lunchbox, dropping my book, snapping my pencil, clearing my throat, throwing a spitball. The one time she blames you for spitballs, Russell shouts, I did it, not her. Don't blame her. But Mrs. Kadave keeps on. And they keep on too, holding their noses, saying, P.U. the Jew. Every single day, soon as you open your lunchbox, even when you don't have a sardine sandwich. Except for Russell. He never holds his nose like you stink. Never. His jaw tight, he just chews more paper into spitballs. Until one Monday, he starts up with rubber bands. Shot as soon as Mrs. Kadave isn't looking. And even when she is. And in another piece, of course, in another vignette, maybe more than once, but one in particular, I write about, I mean, wanting to be invisible was a very persistent desire in the face of, it's not just the teacher, as people will read in the book, or, it's the other kids. Russell was an exception, total exception to what most of the kids did. But this desire to be invisible and the child realizing that she can't be invisible. If God didn't let her grandmothers be invisible, there's a line like that, before they went to the gas chambers, why would God, help a second grade girl or a third become invisible? Like trying to compute miracles, reading about all these miracles, the Red Sea parting, and then, but nobody stopped the people from going to the gas chambers. I remember being that child, kind of, how do you make sense of all that? So she, in very basic ways, sort of is computing that, you know, they couldn't be made invisible. So she can keep wishing it, but it's probably not going to happen. So can she be quiet enough? Can she be good enough, which is a theme both at home and in school, in the world? Can she be if she can't be invisible, maybe she can be quiet enough, not seen, which is, of course, the contrast with being seen, and being seen being so dangerous, being seen by the neighbors who also threw things and, cursed her and her family, being seen. But then, of course, that changes too when she leaves that school and at first is very afraid, but then realizes that little by little that it can be safe to be seen. Another lifelong theme. Yeah.
I have the book open to eat bread. You said eat bread, and I know it's a long piece. I'd just like you to talk about that piece because for me, it's so striking what she does. this whole act of self-betrayal and betraying all of your traditions and really your family and everything, that you're forced to do this.
Right. Well, let me try to explain a little and
Okay.
start reading a little, and then if it's too long, we can see. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to read a couple, like a line or two, maybe give some explanation, and then jump ahead.
Okay.
So it's called Eat Bread. 1. You hear Mrs. Kadave walk down the row between desks. She is coming toward you. You hold your breath. Don't look up. Wish hard that by magic you would disappear, but you never do. Quick, you close your lunchbox. Keep quiet. Out the corner of your eye, you see her gray skirt. Hope she will walk past, leave you alone, not make fun. She stops right next to you. Thousands of wild butterflies trapped in your belly scream without making a sound, too scared to be heard. You are trapped like them, but out here in 3rd grade. Open your lunchbox, little Jew, Mrs. Kadave orders. You know right away she saw it. The flat matzah sandwich wrapped in aluminum foil. Show the class what you have today. So what goes on is it says next, you don't want to obey but have to. So she ordered me to the front of the class. Show everyone your Jew cracker. She's smiling like this is a fun show and tell, but it's not. You don't get up, she repeats. Little Jew, angrier now. I said go to the front of the class. Her voice has poison in it. You stand up. You have no choice. Don't forget your cracker sandwich. And then she asks the child, me, to hold up but the child knows and says nobody wants to learn about Passover. This is not show and tell. They do not want to learn. And the struggle to be out of my skin, but also being a good girl. How do you not listen to the teacher? There was no choice there. Mrs. Kadave comes closer, a slice of white bread in her hand, the kind of bread Americans eat. The same kind the aproned, friendly mother on TV makes sandwiches with for Wally and Beaver. So different from your family's bread. A black pumpernickel loaf that has to be cut with a special bread knife, and rye with seeds like tiny commas. Mrs. Kadave stretches out her arm so the bread touches your lips. Eat bread, little Jew. Let's see you eat the bread. You can't eat bread on Passover. It's a sin. You'll die. The butterflies go crazy in your belly. All of a sudden, you need to make number 2 really bad. But you have to hold everything in, especially the tears crowding together in your eyes. Eating bread on Passover is one of the worst sins a person can do. You will be dead in a second. Maybe Mrs. Kadave knows. And that's why she says to do it. So you will be dead in 3rd grade. She will finally be rid of you. They all will. You would like to be rid of 3rd grade too, but not this way, not because of a sin. And then as it unfolds, basically she insists the child, me, open her mouth. Open your mouth, she orders, and even though you know you shouldn't, you do. Mrs. Kadave pushes the bread in. You let go the matzah. Wait for lightning to come straight down into you. And what unfolds next is, and I remember waiting, how could I eat bread and not be killed, not die? I didn't really know how it all works, but lightning was what came to me. That God's lightning striking me. And then in the vignette, it describes, and I remember this, I couldn't swallow. like it became this mush. My tears, by then the tears were mixing with the bread, the way that, I couldn't swallow. I wanted to swallow, but my throat was locked, completely locked. Please help me swallow, you beg God in your mind. Please, even if it makes me die. You wonder if the lightning is waiting for the minute the bread is all the way inside your belly. All of a sudden, the lump goes down. Still, no lightning. Then you know. The lightning must be striking your parents. You aren't being punished for this terrible sin. They are. Your little sister, too. Everything on the farm will be black ashes when you get home. Nothing will be left because of your sin. You close your wet eyes. Picture a blinding bolt shooting straight down from the sky, an arrow of light into your father's head, your mother's and little sister's, into the house, all the coops with all the chickens in them burning. Kathy and Lucky gone too, the swing by the willow and the willow. And then in this part 2 of the vignette, the child is on the school bus with her little brother, preparing him for the reality that there'll be nothing left and she's not going to be taking care of him. And when she comes home and it's still there, and her mother isn't in one of her sort of semi-catatonic sort of or raging places, she's acting normal. The child who's still been processing, do grown-ups know everything, and figuring out that they kind of don't always know what's in your head. This is confirmation that her mother can't know because she would be insane with whatever grief, even though that grief was not a word the child knew. She just knew what it looked like. So she makes her brother swear never to tell. And from there ensue these intense belly aches. Until later it comes out what happened. Much later, when her brother blurts it out, when no one, not even the doctor, can figure out what these intense stomach aches are that go away as soon as it's too late to get on the school bus. And the child has it's not, she can't figure it out either. Why do I feel like doubling over and crying every morning with so much pain sitting on the toilet? And then the school bus comes and she feels like playing outside. It's not conscious of, and she's taken to the doctor and lies for the first time, looking in a grown-up's face, knows she's lying because she's now figured out also that grown-ups can't read her mind or know what's in her mind, which her parents have told her they could, but she's gotten this by now. So she lies to him because he asks her, did something happen? Which was really, for a doctor to do that then. Did something happen? And she just looks right at him and says no, knowing mostly what she's protecting her parents. She thinks it will kill them. The lightning didn't, but if they find out what happened, it will kill them. So, but then her brother blurts it out and she wants to kill him. Not really. She even says she knows she really doesn't want to kill him, but and that begins a whole process that eventually leads to her leaving that school. Thank God.
But then I think it's important to note what happens when your father goes to the principal.
Yeah, I might be able to read just again short one stanza. So it's in belly aches, but let me skip ahead because I've told some of it. So the brother blurts out after the visit to the doctor. The mother says that the doctor doesn't know what happened, doesn't know what the belly aches are about, and the brother blurts it out that something did, and that the doctor tells the mother, I asked her if something happened, which the child feels, well, you weren't supposed to tell them. But anyway, and the mother, you aren't surprised that Dr. Fallheimer didn't keep a secret. But something did happen, your brother blurts out. Mrs. Kadave made Annie eat bread. on Passover on the school bus. She told me you were going to be dead, that the farm would be all burned up, so she would have to take care of me. You shoot him a look. You wish could strike him dead or at least freeze his mouth. After the lightning didn't come for more than a week, you told him to keep everything you said a secret. It's too late now. Both your parents look at you. Is that true, Annie? Your mother asks. Before you answer, she collapses into a chair with that look she gets when she's seeing Nazis kill her mother, her brothers, her cousin. Your daddy bangs his fist on the table. Cholera, he shouts. I'll teach them. You're surprised that neither of your parents talk again about you eating bread on Passover. You're not sure why, but are glad they don't. Then one night at supper, your daddy says he went to Jacksonville School to tell the principal what happened, asked him to control his teacher, told him that what happened should never happen again. Your daddy looks at your mother. Do you know what he answered me? What he said to me? That Cholera told me, whoever said we wanted you people here, Hitler should have finished you all off. Your mother falls into a chair, is having trouble breathing. I took him by his tie, your daddy goes on. He grabs the air to show how he pulled the principal's tie. You get afraid your daddy choked the principal. Wonder what will happen now to all of you. He goes on, ignoring that your mother might die listening to this. I told him, if that teacher of yours ever does anything like that again to my child, I will kill you. And I mean it. Part 5. Your daddy doesn't kill the principal of Jacksonville School because you get better at secrets. You don't ever let them know what Mrs. Kadave keeps on doing in 3rd grade, so he won't come to the school again. You never trust your brother with another secret, of course. Just Kathy, Lucky, and the Willow. Mostly, you only think your secrets. Don't say them out loud just in case someone might hear. Right after the war, your daddy beat up, maybe even killed Jews who sold other Jews to the Nazis for zlotas, sugar, or coffee. You know because of his nightmares when your mother tells him it's okay, that God forgives him, so he can go back to sleep. But if your daddy kills the principal of the school, even if he deserves it, the police in America might come and kill your daddy. Better to keep secret what Mrs. Kadave does and makes you do. Better that your daddy believes he taught those anti-Semites a lesson, that he protected you. But thankfully, I leaves that school at the end of that 3rd grade.
Yeah. I think it's very powerful that you're bringing that to consciousness. Because the suffering continued, the hatred, the underlying racism wasn't isolated to,
Right,
yeah.
right. And for me, part of that's when I say it's my story and not my story. This isn't a book about anti-Semitism. And it also is reflective of what a lot of people don't know or and just as you said, it's about the ways people continue to make others other and aren't even, people use the term microaggressions. I mean, this teacher, it wasn't a microaggression, but there are all kinds of ways of making other or and so much is going on right now in this country and in the world. And often I think, or sometimes I think anyway, that some people that might never pick up a book like, a how to be an anti-racist or being an anti-racist or some, so, because they just wouldn't, or they might feel somebody wagging their finger or whatever, might in this book be able to even in the process see themselves, even if they weren't made other because of race or religion or whatever, or being an immigrant or being brown or being what, but could, and maybe those who don't identify in any way with that, still through the eyes of an experience of the child who is not wagging a finger at them, but just being in her experience, could it possibly open some of those hearts?
One that I love, colors. And then when you talk about you feel like magenta does. I
Yeah,
love that. And look what you're wearing.
I know. And my grandkids are always talking about how I love purple.
Okay, let's just read a little bit of that.
I'll start and see where to skip or whatever.
Okay.
Colors. What a thrill for you to flip open the top of the biggest box of Crayola crayons there is. 48 colors. Bought at the Elmer 5 and 10 after a long time, with money saved up from packing eggs in the cellar. A whole castle of crayons, each one in its place with perfect points and names you never heard: burnt sienna, gold, ochre, lavender, a green family, olive green, blue green, yellow green, just plain green, the one you know best, color of summer grass with dewdrops on its tips that have no color because clear is not a color, though sometimes there are rainbows inside clear. Grass can also be brown-green or green-brown when it hasn't rained for a long time, or in winter underneath snow. You can't find green-brown or brown-green in the box, even after checking one by one by one. Raw umber makes you laugh. Saying it makes you think of burps. And then it goes on with different blues and other colors she can't quite find in the box, that describing kind of how she sees the sky and the world. You see a dark blue tip. Hope it will match the sky at night. Try it out. Not dark enough. Blue black is the crayon you need. You search again just in case it's there. Find black. Close, but not quite right, because the night sky isn't really black, though it looks like it sometimes, like a huge black cloth with tiny holes the stars burn through so we will see them. So we won't be afraid and think there is no light those nights when the moon hides herself. You wonder if maybe it's possible to color the moods of the sky with any crayon. And then she looks for some more. You turn each blue-tipped crayon sideways to see its name: Prussian blue, cerulean blue, azure blue, cobalt blue, medium blue. Turquoise blue seems the wildest, the most free of the blues. Its silly name, how it looks on paper when you make letters or draw a picture with it. Turquoise, you are pretty sure, probably has more fun than most of the other crayons in the box. Blues all put back, you go across each row, pulling out every single crayon one at a time, say its name, even the colors you already know, like orange, red, yellow, white. With colors you are meeting for the first time today, you write your favorite letters in the alphabet on a velvety white paper napkin. Watch the colors sink in. There is one crayon you don't want to put back. Its name like a queen's: magenta. You make a rainbow shape with it like a bridge. Want to walk on that bridge, to rest there. No other crayon in the gigantic box makes you feel like magenta does. like this color matches you, but not what people can see. Magenta is what people can't see about you.
Okay. So the line magenta is what people can't see about you. What a fabulous line.
And that was one of those times, like we talked about before, where like it just was there. It was like, and that would be the feeling. I think I noticed that, especially when I was reading, because there'd be like this, like the peace had come, not that everything was okay in this child's life or the book, it's all done. It was just that at that moment, something, I loved your words, something was crystallized, something was, in a sense, complete, or, in a certain sense, or understood, or discovered.
Yeah. This is where we're going to close, okay? Knowing, and you make an announcement one day, you begin, I'm going to write things that make people laugh and cry.
Do you want me to read that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing. You walk into the kitchen to tell them, your mother at the sink, your father at the table bent over his newspaper. You clear your throat, say kind of loud, I have something to tell you. Your mother turns, your father raises his head. Both look at you, curious, not angry, not impatient either, like more important things are waiting for them. Suddenly, you imagine saying, never mind, walking out. But you stay, look down at the checkered floor, and get ready to say what feels as real as the 3 wooden steps that lead up to the screen door, real as the screen door, as your hands. One day, you begin, I am going to write things that make people laugh and cry. You don't wait to hear what they will say. You are not asking their permission. Your words and this knowing you could not keep inside hang behind in the kitchen at the same time as they go with you, inside you, where you will keep them safe.
The seeds of everything were inside you then. The awareness that you had beyond circumstances, just kind of being a magical child.
Mm-hmm.
It's reminding me of the vignette where you spoke about, well, I wrote it down as reincarnation. You talk to your brother? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah,
What
that
is
poor.
that? Yeah.
He when he read that in the book, he cried and cried, called me up because he remembers. Just he remembers that just like I remember it. We over the years at times we've joked about it, but we haven't talked about it, and I hadn't written into it, but he called me and he was crying, and he said, well, he just said whatever he said, but it was, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't have the words reincarnation for many, many years to come, but we just knew. Children know a lot. They know a lot, which is where we opened. Yeah.
That porch, you said, right?
That porch. Mm-hmm.
I just love how he validated your experience. Even though your mother,
Yeah.
yeah, that part where you about a child's imagination, she says one morning.
Yeah. Read that, or
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it'll make more sense to anyone listening if I just read one or two
Sure.
about the opening. That porch. You first ask Marty when he is hanging upside down on the swing set if he remembers the white porch you used to rock on together when you were old. I remember, he says, quick, getting right side up. The one with two rocking chairs. We had white hair. You picture the big open front porch wrapped in sunlight, you and Marty smiling at each other, eyes twinkling. We were so happy, you say. Marty, who usually doesn't agree with anything, nods, smiles like he is seeing it now. We laughed a lot on that porch, he says. You ask your mother on a long ride to Sears Roebuck to buy bags for the vacuum cleaner and underwear for your daddy. Where's that porch Marty and me used to rock on when we were old? She wrinkles her face like she doesn't understand your question. Remember, Marty calls out, leaning forward from the back seat, the one with the two big rocking chairs. Where were you and Daddy? Your mother says she has to pay attention to the road and please stop bothering her with pretend games when she is driving. This isn't a pretend game, but she can't tell. You ask a few times after that day, wonder if maybe she is pretending not to remember because she doesn't want you to find that porch. A child's imagination, she says one morning when you ask. Stop talking such Narishkeit. It's foolishness. You are children. You were not old. You will become old, but knock on wood, and she does, not for 120 years. You whisper Marty's name from your bed that night. He's awake. Remember when we were old and we rocked next to each other? Yeah, Annie, I remember, he answers. I'm going to read the last 3 lines. You don't ever ask your mother again, but more than once in a while, you close your eyes and see you and Marty rocking together, laughing and laughing, sunshine in your long white hair. I could see it. And I love that he can too. Not just because he read that, in the book. He remembers. We used to talk about it once in a while. And yeah, anyway.
I love that you felt to read those last 3 lines because I was going to ask you to. So you did it. So I think we're done. I feel like we're done. Like I said, I made so many pages of notes that we haven't talked about, right?
Well, maybe for
So
fun,
much.
even if it's not the interview or if there's a part two or whatever, I would just love to hear if you want sometime, even if it's not, something you're going to edit and make part of the podcast. I would just, you send a book into the world like your podcast, and you often don't hear, and it's so moving to hear. I mean, just even if you wanted to read your notes or whatever it would be, it's just so moving. What moves people, what moves you, and yeah, and your depth, and I was so looking forward to this because I knew it would be real and you know deep and not whatever. It's not about promotion, it's about a real conversation. So it's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow, this must be the perfect timing.
Yeah,
So this was beautiful because it was just beautiful.
I think we're done. We are done.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. I just want to tell you that I did that suggested exercise at the back. I see you. I did it.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it to you.
Oh, I'd love that.
Okay.
I love that.
Okay. I see you, Lori, who is in a state of wonder at the world, the joy of loving a dog, sitting down by him in the entryway wishing he could come upstairs and not understanding why he had to stay there alone. The line in the backyard, running free at Uncle Joe's, wrapping his long rope leash around a tree. He loved me, and I loved him. He belonged upstairs with us, maybe curled up at my feet under the table.
I could feel that child's, like, why does he have to stay down here alone? Wow, that came through.
Mm-hmm.
And where he really belongs. And now where he is.
Yeah. But this dog was the kind of the first dog that really had an impact on me, and he was my grandparents' dog. And they
I know
kept
it
him.
wasn't the same dog that's with you, but I meant,
Yeah, yeah,
wow, and they kept
yeah.
him outside or
They kept
downstairs?
him down in the kind of the entryway, and he had his bed kind of like where the boots would go. And he
Yeah.
always had to stay in that area or down in the basement. He could never come upstairs.
And you knew that he
He belonged upstairs. Yeah.
That's so lovely. And to
Yeah.
recognize your own wonder. And even that, see, those details are portals, like the wrapping of his leash around,
Mm-hmm.
every time the more time spent that way and seeing those details, they open up, like you said, the inner door opens and then more comes, because those are the details that ground us kind of in that time and place, like you said, in the time travel. And yeah.